What's up guys, my name is Abhay Sharma. You are watching Thinking Penguin, and today we're gonna create this abstract background in Blender 2.8 with the help of animation nodes. So welcome to the second part. If you haven't watched the part 1, make sure you watch it first. But it's not necessary, so you just download the node tree and then you can follow this tutorial. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing we will create is the plane object that we will distort, and I want the right kind of geometry. So I want to show you something before that. So let's say if I have created a plane object and subdivided a few times, and if I go into, first I have to go into the object mode, and then if I go into my overlays and turn on vertices, it will display all the vertex indices, right? And just look at the numbering, and it is pretty messed up. So if I delete this plane and create a new one, you will see it is pretty organized, 0 1 2 3. But if you go into edit mode, subdivide it, you will see how it meshes up with the vertex indices. So what I want is a geometry, a plane geometry, which is very much organized. So you can see if I create a grid, you will see it's it's actually what we want. So I'm just going to increase the size, and it makes it pretty easy to extract all the vertex information to create a spline. So let's turn off the vertex indices, and we're gonna import this geometry into animation nodes. So let's create a mesh input node. Let's go into the wireframe and create a mesh input node, or you can go into the add menu, mesh, and create mesh input here, and select the grid object. And if I see my vertex locations, you can see I have 100 vertices, right? And let's say I want to, let's just turn on the vertices, so I want to generate a spline object from this bunch of vertices. Okay, so let's create the slice list and connect the list to list. And now what I want is to extract this vector from the index 0 to 9. So let's set the int to 9. It should give me 10 vertices, okay, but it's giving me 9. So, okay, no problem. So let's create a spline from points node to generate a curve. So and we do not need all the unnecessary stuff, so I'm going to turn off left handles, right handles, radius, tilt, cyclic. We do not need that. So let's just connect the list to points, and we should have a curve object. So let's create a curve object output and turn it on, increase the depth so that we can see the curve. So here is the curve. It's missing 1 point, so I'm going to set the end value to 10, so it will give me a single curve. What we want is multiple curves. Basically I am extracting the edge loops from this plane object. So let's change the method from index to length, and I'm gonna set the length to 10. So it's exactly the same thing. And now we want to create multiple curve for, like, if I change the value from 0 to 10, you can see we can extract all the edge loops from this plane. So we have to use loops here. So to do that, let's create a loop input node. So I'm going to disconnect it from here, and we will create a loop input, right? And we connect our list as a parameter. All right, let's generate the invoke subprogram, and we'll connect our vertex location to list and give at least one iteration to the loop so that it can start working. I do not want my curve object inside my curve inside my loop, so I'll just move it here. Now we'll generate a spline list from the loop like this. Let's connect it, and now I can generate my spline, right? But let's increase the number of iteration in the loop. So right now we are getting one curve. If I increase the iteration, you'll see we will get 3 curves, but all the curves are at the same position because they are all starting from the same value. Okay, so to fix that, what I have to do is, I have to change the start value each iteration. So to do that, basically I'm going to multiply this value by 10, so that each time it skips 10 elements, so like that. So now if I increase the number of iterations, you will see I'll get that many curves like this. Okay, so this is these are all the edge loops in one direction. So let me just rename this spline list to let's say, if I go into the node and change the name to, let's say, X splines. So these are all the splines in one direction, and we'll generate the second bunch of curves in the other direction. So let me just duplicate this spline list, spline from points, and I will create a spline list output node from here. I don't want any problem, so let's just connect that, and let's rename this to Y splines. Alright, so now we'll connect the Y spline, since nothing is happening because there is no connection right now. Okay, so to extract the information from the other direction, what I'll do is, first we'll connect the list to list and return on the steps, and I'm going to skip 10 elements, and it should give me the curves in the other direction. These are pretty simple logic. If you just apply a little bit of common sense, you will get these results pretty easily. There's nothing special in it. So and the number of splines depend on the number of iterations you have in your loop, and you can see how this thing is actually working. So I'm changing the starting element, and I'm skipping 10 elements, so that's why I'm getting the curves in the other direction. All right, so now we need to combine these two splines. So we can simply use a combine spline list. So there is combine spline list, and we can connect both right here, and they basically will get a wireframe. So I'm going to turn off the vertices, and let's turn down the width of the bevel depth, and I think we are missing one couple of curves, so I'm just going to increase the number of iteration. So here we go, 10 now. So our edge loops are now extracted. Now we're gonna distort the geometry, and to distort that, we can simply use an offset vectors node. And you can see this is not my this is actually the original mesh. I do not want that, so we have to generate our mesh from the animation node. So let's create a mesh object output, and we'll connect we have to create a combine mesh tool. So combine mesh node, and here we have to specify the vertex location, edge indices, and polygon indices. And actually I created the input node. Let's create the output, connect the mesh to mesh, and now we get the vertex location from here. For the edge indices and polygon indices, if you go into your node settings, you can turn on the edge indices and polygon indices from here. These are all hidden. So just connect this properties, and we should get a mesh object. So let's generate that, and here we go. But I should get the vertex location from the offset vector. Okay, so let's connect this, right? So let's do this, and now it's perfect. And now we can use the any sort of like let's use a noise fall off node to distort the geometry. So noise fall off, and if we connect the fall off to fall off, you will see it distorts the geometry. We just need to increase the frequency to get more distortion in the mesh, something like this. So now if you want to animate the distortion, you can simply offset the distortion, right? like this. All right, now let me hide these splines, and I'm gonna fix the actual geometry. So right now the edges are very sharp and it's not a good area, so let's apply a bevel modifier, and let's give decrease the width and give some segments. And now if I set the shading to smooth, it will look much better. So like this, let's decrease the width a little bit more, so it will catch the highlights if you do any sort of lighting in the scene, and it looks nicer, much nicer. All right, so let's turn on our splines. It's very thick, so I'm gonna decrease the thickness. All right, so now I think we are ready to import our tool that we have created in the earlier tutorial. If you have downloaded that, you can simply append it into this file, and if you go into your subprograms, you will find the spline trim animate node. So let's create that, and I'm going to insert it right here, and I want one in the X and one in the Y. So let's duplicate this one and apply it here. Okay, now we need to decrease the width, depth. Okay, so that's how it looks like, and let's see how it looks like when we animate the value. So I'm going to use it, I'm going to make it as a parameter so that we can control both attributes with a single attribute, and when we change the value, you can see how it animates on the mesh, right? And there is the problem, the flickering problem I have shown you earlier. So to fix that, we simply have to increase the number of samples. So if I use the value, you can see this is definitely the resolution problem. So we simply let's make this also as a parameter, and let's increase the number of samples. So just see when it becomes like unnoticeable. All right, but it makes your process very slow, so I will only turn it on when we are going to finally render it. Otherwise 50 is good. Okay, so now let's try to set the delay. So duration is 20, so let's set the delay to 10, right? And now we can randomize these values, so each spline has different duration with different delays, so we'll have different length and it will look nicer. So let's create a random number node, and let's place it here. All right, so well, we have to decide what would be the minimum and maximum value. So for duration, I will use the minimum value. So first we'll need the seed, and let's set the duration to minimum duration to, let's say, 5, and the maximum to 20. And this will randomize my duration for every single curve in the X direction. Let's do this for the Y as well, and now you can see it's getting cluttered. Let's create another one for the delay. So let's connect the seed to index, and now we'll use the delay. For the delay, we'll set the minimum value to, let's say, 5 and maximum to 10. So, and let's do this for the other node as well. All right, and now you can see in the viewport how it looks like. So if we, okay, so now you can see how cluttered it looks like, and that's why you should be organizing your node groups in separate entities, so it's easier for you to when you come back and you see what's going on. So you can use the frame node, it's a node. It's a way to organize your nodes into separate groups. I think you should be using it, but right now it's not that complicated, so I'm just going to go with it. So let's so this is our value and how it looks like when we animate that. So let's do the final animation. So to do that, and we can use the distortion, we can animate the distortion using the offset on the noise fall off node. And for the ease of use, I'm going to use a combine vector node. It gives me access to the individual axis, and I can easily connect it with the time info node. So let's create the time info and let's connect that. Let's play the timeline and see how it looks like. It's very fast, so I'm going to multiply it with a smaller number. You can use divide as well, but I prefer multiply. So let's say so I think it's slow, so let's make it a little bit faster, something like this. Or let's use 0.15, 0.015. all right, I think it looks better. Now we can animate the value. So let's connect this to the value, and we have to, let's see how it looks like. So it's very fast as well. So let's see, multiply it with 0.1 and see how it looks like. And I think that's acceptable, right? And at the time of render, we just simply have to increase the number of samples on the curve, so it won't give you this weird effect. All right, so let's save it, and let's go into our environment, and I'm going to apply a simple HDR map which comes with Blender. So I'm going to use the studio.hdr. Let's render it, see how it looks like. I'm going to hide the background, so go into EV and film and turn on transparent. Let's turn on ambient occlusion, and let's increase the distance, something like this, and select the geometry, and let's apply some materials. So I'm going to apply a material. Let's give it a dark color to the base color of this object, and I'm going to turn on metallic, and let's increase the roughness so it's not that much reflective, as sort of a matte material. Let's give a material to the spline. So I'm gonna use simply a emission shader, so like this, and turn off the navigate. I don't want to see that. Okay, so let's give it a color, or I can go into the shader editor and select the splines. I should be able to see that. Let's find it. Okay, here it is. So let's change the color to something like this, and to see the glow, you simply turn on the bloom effect on the EV render engine. And now we just need to increase the strength, so let's change the color to something else and increase the strength. So that's how it looks like. And I'm gonna increase the threshold a little bit, like this. Let me darken the just a minute. Okay, so now I'm just checking in different modes how it looks like, because at this point it's all about how it looks. Let me go and turn down the width of the splines, so something like this. And let's animate, let's play the timeline and see how it looks like. So it looks fine to me. I think at this point our node setup is complete. We just have to play with the look. So I'm gonna make this one a little bit darker, so let's do that, something like this. Maybe I need to I want to increase the strength, so let's do that. Let's change the color to something else. Let's change this to blue, and see, display the timeline. So this the way we extracted the edge information from this geometry is very very simple way, because the geometry was simple. But I know there is a command in Python where you can extract the edge loop information, but I haven't gone into the code part, so maybe it's possible. But this is a pretty straightforward technique. And so at this point I have shown you everything I want to show, and I hope you like the tutorial. So if you like the tutorial, please like it, subscribe the channel, and press the bell icon if you want to get any sort of notification. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.